Okay, I want to do another video today. Uh, I've been working a lot, so I'm not exactly clean shaven. So hope the ladies out there don't mind. Anyhow, so let me get straight to the point on some of the things which I was talking about yesterday about what was termed classical conservatism and the culture when I was growing up. When I reference classical conservatism, I'm talking about the culture. I'm not talking about political parties. The culture was primarily classical conservatism, but you could be a Democrat or a Republican. Certain things were always givens. Fathers worked, mothers stayed home, raised the kids. You pay your taxes. You went to church on Sundays. Stores were closed on Sunday in observance of people who went to church. The culture was primarily Christian, and when I say that, I'm not saying that everybody was Christian, but it was primarily Christian, and the mindset was primarily Christian. When kids went to school, you had the pledges of allegiance. Um, you didn't have all the, let's say, diverse sexual orientations, LGBTQ community. Uh, Back then in the 1960s, you had the Civil Rights Act passed in 1964, which was a good thing. It was needed. And you had the Voting Rights Act passed in 1965, and a fair housing uh, vote that came about. I think in 1967, because people who were poor, they were suffering because of sometimes rents being too high. All these things were good things. Okay, they were solid things. But what happened is that, see, things started becoming like a lot more complex and culture, a lot more cultural changes to the left and everything else. Okay, but still, see, we have to understand. And I say to myself, because things change, so you got to adjust to the changes. It doesn't mean you necessarily agree with the changes, but you adjust. You realize that when you live in a country, you got to consider everybody. But the cultural conservatism was all embracive towards everybody. It didn't matter white, black, or whoever it was. It was just a culture, the understanding of things, see? And that's what pretty much we lost in this country. So when you hear certain people talk about, like, for instance, Nick Fuentes, he's a young guy, and I don't understand his sick ideas about Hitler and everything else, and talks about taking over the Republican Party and conservatism, Turning Point USA. That's it's just off the rail. It's not really what classical conservatism is. Okay, I want to clarify that.